I am so excited to announce that iDRIVEACLASSIC is now sponsored by Adrian Flux, one of the UK's leading classic car insurers. If you're looking for classic car insurance, I've popped a link to Adrian Flux in the description box below. Hi guys, it's Steph from iDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back on this very chilly day in my big fake fur coat with this fantastic but very modified Austin A55 Cambridge. Now this car belongs to my wonderful friends Jake and Neve, and they bought it as a bit of a fixer-upper, and it feels like it's got a real Vivian from the Young Ones vibe to it. And I know that it's not the best example I could have shown you, it's certainly not concourse, and there's some of you that are going to definitely say it should be in a scrapyard, but you know what, it's a good fun car, there's snow on the ground, and what better way to celebrate the depths of winter than by taking out a car without a working heater. So we'll kick off and I'll show you around the outside, and then we're going to catch up with Jake. For me, this is the golden era of Austin, when cars were quality and buying a new car was truly an occasion. And I think the sense of occasion lives on, because I've never been so excited to drive a car in the way that I felt about this one. It's been waiting quite a long time to drive this. Jake was like, oh, let me repaint it before you get in it. So it does look far better than it did when Jake and Neve bought it, to be fair. Now I'm sure that with that many of you have spotted it's got some interesting modifications. So I'd like to point out at this early stage in the video, it's been heavily modified for quite some time, and really, as you'll see, especially when we get inside, it is past the point of no return. So today's video is quite light-hearted. We're going to have a look at the car, and let's be honest, it's got some really strong 80s shoestring DIY home custom job vibes to it. So don't be expecting anything original today, but it's quite a characterful car, so just roll with this. I'm sure we'll have a standard A55 on the channel at some point, but today I want to focus on this car because for me it's one of my favourites out of the friendship group and what people have got. Now going back to the car, very interestingly, whilst you have manufacturers like Morris who ran with the same cars for years on end, like the Morris Minor, Austin were a bit more out there, and they were happy to upgrade and introduce new models with a greater frequency. The A55 Cambridge came to market in early 1957, and it replaced the A50, which hadn't sold for very long itself actually. So they sold the A50 from 1954 through to 1957, so it was a little bit of a crossover of both models. And the A55 Mark I Cambridge, as we're testing today, only lasted until 1959, because it was then again upgraded by the more futuristic Pininfarina styled A55 Mark II, which is what a lot of people think of actually when you talk about the A55. In fact, if you want to see one, I think Matt from Furious Driving did one recently. Now, seeing as this is crazily modified in a way that I both love and find frustratingly overworked in places, and yes, I'm talking to you the glove box, which we will see when we get in, I thought I would first of all share with you the running gear it should have had. So from new, this would have had a B Series 1489cc engine, and for transmission it would have had manual or a manual plus Borg-Warner overdrive or the Manumatic transmission. Sadly, we'll never know what this had, because from what I've been told, the original running gear on this was lost before even I was alive, and I'm ancient. At present, it's running a 1.6 B Series with a 4-speed manual box. Now, judging from the Wolseley sticker that you'll see when we go under the bonnet, I'm going to guess that the running gear for this probably came out of something like a 1660. But I think it swapped hands a couple of times between that gear going in and it being owned by Jake and Neve. So we haven't actually been able to work out where that's come from. The brakes on these, when sold from new, were the 9-inch drums. And bizarrely, to say that everything else has been mucked about with, it's still got those on. Now, despite the running gear and the original interior being lost, we do have the body looking largely as Austin intended. So it sits at around 13 feet 11 inches long, and the lengthened back end and rear style with wraparound window, which was different to the A50 which had come prior. In fact, the wraparound back window should also be noted for the fact it was unique to the A55 Mark I. Although if you're a bit of an Austin buff, you will know that similar styling was used when the A90 Westminster was changed to the A95 and A105. So there you have it, that's a bit about this Austin A55. there's a lot going on for it, and it's got a lot has been done. So I mean, even as we come inside, you can see this door card which Jake has done himself. More to come on that, and the seats have been bodged in, but to be honest, I think it's got a real spirit to it that we don't tend to see in classic cars nowadays, because classic cars nowadays are so expensive and people just don't have the money to take on cars like this and be mucking around with them. And I don't think it's something that young people massively do on a big scale anymore that they were doing when I was younger. So when I got offered this, and when Jake and Neve took it on, I just thought it was a bit refreshing, and it's very different to anything else that we've had on the channel, and I wanted to show you it because quite a lot of you do ask to see custom and home jobs, and I thought, well, this has got it in spades. So there we are. So as I've said all along, this car is so far from original. It's a bit of a joke, not in a bad way. I love it. It looks absolutely ridiculous once you get inside, but the minute that you get behind the wheel, you see why Jake and Neve have taken this car on. It's got more personality than probably the last 50 cars I've tested. I love it with my entire heart, and honestly, I've asked for first refusal because it's just brilliant. So I'm going to hand you over to Jake. Neve can't be with us today because she's at work, which is a massive shame because she's very involved with this car in a way that I think that many men wish their girlfriends were, because Neve is a car girl too. So excited to hand over to those two. So Jake, it's over to you. Tell us why you've bought this A55 Cambridge.
Hey, I'm Jake from Sheffield. I've got this peach of an automobile. It's a 1957 Austin A55. I own it with my girlfriend Neve. Unfortunately, she's at work, so she can't be with us today. I bought this car October last year. It were cheap. Basically, I wanted a cheap car because I've got a Ford Anglia that I customised from me being 14. Seen on some of Steph's pictures on IDRIVEACLASSIC, and I sold that, went more into drag racing with a Dodge Dart that I've got, and unfortunately it's not really suitable for road anymore, so I stuck to just racing that for a bit and got bored, not having anything when all my mates going out for drives and stuff, not being able to go out in anything. So I saw this on Facebook Marketplace and thought, yeah, I like the look of that. And it were reasonably cheap, so it looks like a fun car. Went and bought it, sight unseen, drove it home, and we took it for a test drive, had it up on our ramp, had a look around it, and thought, it's actually a lot better than we thought. Yeah, it's not the prettiest, and it had its sins on show, but there were no rot to speak of. Everything's been plated up, it's all nice and solid, and it was just going to be fun car to abuse and leave outside and use in all weathers, and being the person that I am, I couldn't help but tart it up a little bit. And over winter I've thrown a couple of buckets of paint at it, and it looks a little bit more reasonable than it did. So here we are. Hopefully just finish a few bits off it with interior, repaint wheels, fit a rear bumper to it, and just enjoy it, use it and abuse it. Go for drives throughout summer, car shows, go to racing with it, and almost daily drive it, just because it's just a cheap old car that it's been modified in such a way that, and plated up in past, that it don't need to be original. Just keep it looking presentable, looking nice, and a fun classic. What you can do with not a lot of money.
And there's something that I really love about this car, and that I know lots of people at home are going to be like, I don't like it because of it, is because of how rough and ridiculous it is. And it reminds me of my Morris Minor way back in the day, with all its different bits and pieces bodged onto it. But it's great because whilst it does look a bit ridiculous inside with its modern car front seats, its Morris Minor Traveller back seat, and all the ridiculous bits that I'm going to show you on the dash, it is structurally safe, structurally sound. It's got good brakes on it. It's got everything you need to make it a safe car. It's just a bit ropey. And again, it's that Vivian from the Young Ones vibe about it that I really love. And as I said, it's not the best example, but it's got such spirit to it. And the fact that nobody wanted to touch this car, and Jake and Neve took it on, it was basically up for scrap. Realistically, a scrapyard would have looked at it and thought there's not even any parts really worth salvaging on it. So it would have just ended up being crushed and forgotten about. And now I feel like the car's got a second life, and I love that about it. But one of the funniest things is when you get into this, it becomes even more apparent what an absolute circus of spare parts it actually is. And I wanted to show you some of that. And I'm no way criticising, because I think some of the things in here are quite ingenious and some of them are quite funny. And obviously it's my friend's car, so I can be quite honest about it. And I'm going to show you some of it. So first of all, we don't have a door card on the passenger side. And I said to Jake, I was like, why is there one on the driver's side and not on the passenger side? And he said to me, well, I'm making one, aren't I? I've just not had time to fit it. And I thought, right. But, you know, it's the joy of the car, isn't it? And he also said, just check your hair in the mirror. And I'm going to show you. So when I folded it down, it said, ugly. And I thought, right. And apparently they were driving along one day and Neve was fixing her hair and she pulled it down to fix her hair. And she said, Jake, it says ugly next to the mirror. And it's just, I don't know, there's a real sense of humour with this car that you just don't find on cars anymore because they're worth so much money, so everybody's really serious about them. The next thing that really stressed me out was this glove box. So when I went to open it, this is split pin, and I pulled it open and it exploded onto my hand, and I've kind of cut my finger. So thanks for that, Jake and Neve. And then I came into the centre of the car and I thought, is there anything here which was here when the car was sold new? I think we can safely say the key is probably the only original item here, and the heater. So for your heater, which isn't working, because apparently it's not plumbed in. I mean, how these two are getting on with that heater in the depths of winter, I do not know. So over to our left hand side, that's your airflow, and over to the right hand side, that's just controlling the temperature. Now, as you can see, we've got two blank spaces in the middle. Number one is for the stereo, this bigger one, and the little one there is for the clock. Has it got either? Of course not, because it's this car. And either side of that, we've got these two little plastic switches. So the one over to our left-hand side is for the electric wash, and the one on the right-hand side here is for the horn. Now, coming down, we've got this panel, and I said to Jake, I went, what's that off? And he went, I don't know. I was like, okay. And so we've got a few blank spaces there, but I mean, it's the spirit of this car, isn't it? So here we've got the lights. I think it's the only thing that matches. And then confusingly, even though we've got a wiper slot, the switch on panel is actually for your wipers there. Coming down, we've got a rev counter and a homemade drinks holder. Lovely. Now, coming in front of us, things start to look a little bit more usual. So as you can see there, we've got our fuel gauge, temperature gauge, and our speedo. But wait a minute, what's that? That's some flames that someone's painted on. Apparently it came like this. Centre here, this is a horn push, not the original. Jake said when he got the car that it was just blank, so he just had one spare in a box and he thought, pop it in. And I don't think it looks too out of place. It looks all right. And then one of the last things is the handbrake. So this, you'll know, is an umbrella handbrake. So I'll demonstrate that for you there. So just pull that up, push the button in, push it down, and that releases the handbrake. I'll tell you what though, it's far better placed than, I think the Humber was over on the right hand side. This is far better positioning for this. You'll also probably be wondering what's going on with the gear change, because of course this isn't where it should be. It should have been column change on this. Been changed over, and the transmission unit is actually two gas bottles. Lovely. So someone's bodged that in at some point. So we've now got our gearbox, no synchromesh on first. And then it's just 4-speed box on that one, so 1600 under the bonnet, which you may have spotted already, and then we've got the 4-speed to go with it. So whilst on the original 1500 we would have been looking 0 to 60 in around 31 seconds, in this it's a darn sight faster, but it is a lot louder. So I'll show you all that when we go out for a drive. So yeah, so I'm going to start her up for you, walk you through the gearbox dead quickly, and we're going to head on out. But honestly, it's a very different test for me. Usually I try and test cars quite seriously, but with this, we're just going to have a bit of a laugh today. So let's get her started up and you can hear what she sounds like. Now, it's the moment of the video that you've all been waiting for, to hear that 1600 engine that's clearly been robbed out of something or other under the bonnet. So we're going to get her started up. I'm going to give her a bit of rev too, because it sounds absolutely ridiculous in here. It's so loud. Right, grab your ear defenders. We're going to go and have a listen from the outside. So being this car and everything that this car offers, we have got a motorbike piston as a gear knob. That's lovely. So going to first, remember we've got no synchro mesh on that. Down into second, which is sketchy as anything when you're driving. Up into third, down into fourth, and then to get it into reverse, which I haven't managed to master first time at any point on this trip, is you push it right across and we're in. Oh, did it that time. Now we're going to set off. I'm going to go up through the gearbox for you, and you can hear what she sounds like. But she surprised me actually, because I've been driving her for a little while. She's a lot, she's a lot louder than I expected, but she's also a lot quicker. So let's head off. Now I didn't know what it was going to handle like, because of course we're not on the original wheels, we're on TR6 steels. But I spoke to Jake and I said, oh, did you put those on? Because I don't remember it ever being on anything else. And he said, no, actually, he's in contact with an owner from many moons ago, and I think they'd put them on, so it's been on it a while. Now, of course with that, I can't tell you if this handles better than it would on standard wheels, but one of the things that first shocked me about this car, because I thought, you know, and it's again, never judge a book by its cover, I thought when I first saw the car, I thought this is going to handle like an absolute pig and it's going to be all over the road. But actually, it's an absolute dream. And I would say, if you've ever driven a Morris Minor, you'll know that the handling actually is all right. I would say that this is far better and far more responsive. Now, it's still on drum brakes. So of course it doesn't stop as quickly as a modern car, but because Jake and Eve have been over this and really spent, actually they say they haven't, but they've actually spent a lot more time and money on this than you might think. So it stops really, really well, better than I was expecting. It is of course incredibly loud inside the cabin, but I mean, what can you expect? Because we haven't got any of the shielding that we would have in place if this car was new. So we haven't got the door cards, we haven't got any sound deadening. And you know, look, we've got this massive space here, which means that all the noise is just coming straight through. As you can probably see, as I put my foot down, it's got a lot of get up and go. So my foot's all the way down and I'm doing, what, 50-ish? And it's great, you know, because the pair of them, they aren't really going on massive motorway journeys, they aren't doing massive long slogs. Especially not at the moment when things are just essential travel only. So realistically, the car is great for doing exactly what it needs to do. So I remember the last time I did a video, I gave some advice and I said, if you're driving a car without synchro on first, my advice would be is come to a complete stop before you go into first gear. And I got a little bit of a pasting for saying it, because people were saying, oh, you could double declutch into first and all the rest of it. And my advice that I shared with you was simply from a classic car specialist who had given me that advice myself when I bought my Morris Minor back in 2009. And because it's a rule that I've stuck to so religiously, I wanted to give that bit of advice at home. So yes, you are needing to make sure really, if you are, you know, someone who's driven classics for years and you're not very good at double declutching, do make sure you come to a complete stop before you go into that first gear. But if you are a bit more of a seasoned driver, yes, you are right, you can double declutch into first gear, but I don't really like to do it. Now, one of the drawbacks from this car, apart from the fact that my toes are currently heading off into frostbite territory is the fact that the gearbox is a little bit knackered. So every time we go into second, you're really having to get it right. You're having to rev match, double D clutch to get it in. Otherwise it's grinding. And I said to Jake, I said, is that normal? And he said, yeah, it's absolutely normal. He said, you know, once it goes, and we'll find a replacement box. But we thought what we'd do is just try and nurse it on for as long as possible. So, you know, it's, as we said at the start of the video, it's just a cheap budget classic in a world where cheap budget classics just don't exist anymore. I think you're very hard pushed now to find something in this era for under £1,000 that you can enjoy. And seeing how much fun Jake and Neve have had in this, and it's just infectious. I'm smiling from ear to ear as I drive it. But of course it is my favourite era of cars, so I'm not really surprised. Now, one of the things that I didn't expect from this car was the handling, which is absolutely spot on. The speed, which of course we got from that 1600 engine box combo, and also the fact that it feels very up together. So as you can probably hear, we're picking up to 50 miles an hour and it's absolutely screaming. So it's not the most pleasant on your ears. You do need some ear defenders. But the driving experience of being in the car, and even though those windows are rattling, it's absolutely freezing, it's so joyful and it feels so together. And I just love it. I just absolutely love it. So I know it doesn't look like the best example, but I love the story, I love the spirit and the positivity and the sheer real blind ignorance of Jake and Neve taking this on and thinking, meh, and just buying it and having a laugh. And I think that's some of the joy that's missing from the classic car world now, is that young people don't always get to experience these cars at a lower level because they're just not affordable anymore. So it's been a proper laugh taking this car out today. I've really enjoyed showing you it, and I wish Jake and Neve all the luck in the world because it's a fun little car, it's well together, and yeah, it's great. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If we aren't connected on social media already, a lot of you have been telling me recently that you didn't know I've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just simply search iDriveAClassic and we can catch up on there. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care and drive safely.